speaking on Trayvon Martin and the decision of the jury, when reasonable doubt becomes a way out, and this has been traditional, it should be questioned. That concept in itself, reasonable doubt. Because my question is, was there a body? Yes, someone was killed. And the person who was killed was not a criminal or committing any criminal activity that he should have been approached for. So when a person who is supposedly a neighborhood watch, they're supposed to know the tenants and the people that live in this area, or that there are families that are of different racial makeups. But yet, George Zimmerman, who they claim this is not a race, well, this is definitely a race issue. I know a whole lot of black brothers that are upstate doing time in prison, in federal prison, in state prison, with the flimsiest of evidence to convict them. They are doing long stretches of time, but yet reasonable doubt never was part of the subject matter in their trials. Reasonable doubt has become a big issue when it started affecting big people, white people. So therefore now it has become the way out of a situation if you can establish reasonable doubt. But there is no doubt in this. Trayvon Martin was shot to death by George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman immediately identified him as a possible criminal because he was walking from a part of the community to another part of the community. George Zimmerman chose to approach and follow behind this young man. This young man's on the telephone talking to a young lady, and they dogged that young lady on that telephone. They dogged her. They dogged that girl in court. They made her seem like she was ignorant. But the bottom line is that she could only tell the truth. She could only tell what happened. And in her own crude way, she was abused on the witness stand. Who spent more time on the witness stand than anybody else? Was it that young lady? That black young lady? 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, perhaps on that witness stand? Why was she questioned like that? I blame the prosecution because I feel the prosecution had a half-hearted approach to even dealing with this case. So therefore, they were part of a conspiracy to free George Zimmerman and put open season on black youth and anybody that appears to be a young man who possibly could be a thug. But not necessarily every young man amongst our community are thugs, gangsters, or any other lot, or criminals. This young man was going home with a bag of Skittles, a kid's candy, and a bottle of iced tea, or a can of iced tea, trying to make it from the store back home. And George Zimmerman followed him, approached him, and killed him. That's murder, no matter how you cut it. And your reasonable doubt, your American idea of a reasonable doubt, should be cast out. Because the bottom line is that there is no doubt. The boy is dead, and George Zimmerman shot him. And even if he got his head banged on the ground, he was the aggressor. He was the one who kept following it and badgering this kid. He was the one who chose, and it's right there on the tapes. He tells them they always get away with it. Oh, what is Trayvon Martin getting away with? Oh, perhaps he's getting away with some Skittles that he bought. What did he do? And then you use terms like suspect and all of these terms, and then you want to talk about you got your head banged on the ground and you feared for your life. Well, if you hadn't been following the man, messing with the man, profiling the man, stalking the man, if you had followed the orders you were given, then maybe your head wouldn't get banged around. So no, If you roll up on me the same way, I'm going to bang your head. But I'm not going to lose the gun. I'm going to use it on you. Because you brought a gun to a child's playground. The boy's walking down the street, minding his own business, trying to get home, and having a phone call. You know, sometimes people talk on, you know what, I'm a street nigga. I'm straight out. I'm out there. I see people talking on the phone for hours and hours. Sometimes they just stop and stand in a spot talking on the phone. Because that's what people do with cell phones. So you don't know that? Where you from? I'm from Brooklyn. I know that. So I don't get uptight when I see somebody standing talking on their phone, because I know what people do. Back when phones first came out, man, I'd be surprised because I hear somebody talking. I'm looking around. I'm thinking they talking to me. They on the phone. I go, they on the cell phone. Now it's a little different. So that's what Trayvon was also doing, talking on the phone. And yes, he got caught in the rain, and maybe he went to seek some shelter till the rain stopped. I could stand under a tree. I could stand under an awning just to wait until the storm passed so I could proceed on my path. All of that stuff was cast out of the evidence because it was a one-way ticket out for George Zimmerman, both by the prosecution and by the defense. Defense had their ticket. Reasonable. Let's hit them with reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is your way out. Make them think, oh, I can't figure what really happened. I know what fucking happened. Trayvon got shot, and George Zimmerman shot him. That's what happened. There's a dead body, and there's the shooter. That's murder. Now how you cut it? Stand defense, stand your ground law. What ground you standing on, man? Are you in front of your house? You ain't in front of your house. You down the block somewhere, following behind a kid that ain't bothering nobody and trying to go home. And you was told not to do it. And you still did it anyway. You're guilty of sin. You're guilty of sin. You're guilty of sin. And America is guilty for having that concept about some reasonable doubt when the stuff is right there in front of you. What about all my brothers that's upstate in prisons in New York doing long stretches of time with the flimsiest of evidence to prove they committed this crime? They just getting time on top of time because reasonable doubt don't count when it comes to the niggas. It only counts when it comes to the white man and his way of life. America, you're hell in a handbasket. That's where you're headed. Everything is going down because of the way you do your people, the way you do us who have been here for 400 years in America and continue to mistreat us and murder us. I was a little boy and I looked in the Jet magazine and I saw Emmett Till's face of what they did to him down there in that Mississippi or wherever the hell they were at when they beat that boy to death saying he flirted with a white woman. That's not the story I was told. I was told the boy was a stutterer and that he used to have to whistle to be able to say his words properly. He was taught it or that was his method. But he wasn't whistling at no white woman, 14 years old. He was minding his business and he got beaten to death. And this has been a string of our youth that has been done to over and over and over again. This ain't nothing new. All these names: Emmett Till, Willie Edwards, James Chaney, Michael Donald, Michael Griffith, Yusef Hawkins, James Byrd, Trayvon Martin. I was there when we had a day of outrage for the death of Yusef Hawkins. I am a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but I supported Sonny Carson because he was my brother. I knew Sonny for a lot of years. That's my brother. I love Sonny Carson. I stand up for what he believed in. I stood by him on that bridge, on that day of outrage when Yusef Hawkins was murdered. And I faced off because I'm from the group called Xclan. We are the original black group. We stood on the front line because we were not punks. Xclan was real. We were not in the back. We was not in the middle. We didn't have no bodyguards. We were our own bodyguards. That's Xclan. And Sonny Carson said they killed Yusef Hawkins because he went to buy a car in a white neighborhood and they shot him down. And that's not right. And we ain't going to have that. So we got 10,000 black youth together, and we took the Brooklyn Bridge and stood there until we decided to walk off that bridge. And oh yeah, the man came. He had his shields, he had his sticks, he had his guns, he had everything. And we stood there because it was time for war. And sometimes it's time for war, and sometimes it's time for peace. But who is the breaker of the peace? It's not us. I'm saying somebody you do some jacked up stuff out there in the street. They do. And it's bad that they do that. Because that's what gives us this image of thugs and gangsters and criminals. And the prisons are filled with our youth. And this is not good. Our black youth are being wasted in the prisons. And I say the white man's prisons. Because that's where you brought us from Africa here and enslaved us for 400 years. Kept us in servitude for 200 solid years. Until a whale with a pen signed us free. And tell my people this. And you can play it on the air if you want to, and you don't have to. No people ever got their freedom with a signing of a pen. No people. Every people that ever got freedom from another people, they had to fight for it. The only ones that was able to do that was in India. And they had to still fight too. But that was their own country. The English thought they were going to run everybody. But that's what they did. The English went all over the world thinking they was better than everybody and bring that concept of English law and English ideology and English government to all these so-called primitive people around the world to enlighten them to their way and use guns and cannons and soldiers to overtake all these people. This is what was done. And now today, the daughter of England, that's America. That's America. That's what she is, the daughter of England. And now they still have us in their belly. We're still here. And our people are being murdered, imprisoned, and they're killing themselves every day. Self-hatred is a terrible thing. Once we had a teacher that was waking us up. Beautiful teacher. He woke up brothers like Muhammad Ali. Great fighting brother, man. I love Muhammad. He was the greatest that ever fought. He was the greatest of all times. Now, I feel bad for him. Because he didn't listen. If he'd have listened, he'd have been able to still speak like I do. But he loved to fight. And we told him, brother, the fight was over. Once you beat Fraser and beat Foreman, retire, brother. You don't have to fight no more. Because you've done the greatest deed of all. You've beaten the baddest. You beat Fraser twice. And you beat Foreman. You did it. Sit down now, brother. And let's help build this black nation. Help save our people from the frustration of being mistreated for all these hundreds of years. And all you Uncle Toms out there, you know, you think you're in the door now. You think because we got this Obama up there in office, or we got a black president now, we are. Let me tell you something, man. This ain't the first time white folks hired a nigga to clean up their dirty house. And if you don't do a good job and get all the cobwebs from up in the corners of the ceiling, they're going to blame him for the dirt that's up in the ceiling. So, I'm not surprised at Obama being elected. Time was right. And our people are being used again. We're selling liquor to each other. We're giving these images to the people. There's a whole lot of stuff going on beyond Trayvon Martin. But Trayvon Martin was murdered by George Zimmerman. And that is a fact. And he is as guilty as sin. And the people that let him go, they're the same people that he lived with. They're so-called his peers. So what do you expect? Justice for us? There's no justice for us. You know, they couldn't get OJ for the so-called murder. You know, the glove don't fit, you must acquit. But they got him for something else. You know, they got him because they wanted him. Because some white person got killed by him. Supposedly. He's supposed to have actually did this, but yet he didn't do it. He was found not guilty. They were mad about that. But that shows you the lack, or the important thing, which is the most important thing, is reasonable doubt is questionable. It is a questionable tactic. Reasonable doubt. It's not always a way out. It shouldn't always be a way out. But in the case of O.J. Simpson, they never caught him there. They never caught him committing the crime. He never admitted it. And they had to prove that he did it. The burden of proof is on the state. We know this. Well, the burden of proof was very simple in this case. In fact, that's mainly what the civil rights case is going to be about. It's going to be about the state of mind of George Zimmerman. His state of mind. We're going to disregard the child to the point where we want to approach the state of mind of George Zimmerman on that day and at that time and at that night. And then we will look at the subject who became the victim. That is Trayvon Martin. What made George Zimmerman immediately single out this kid? Because he had a hoodie on in the rain? I'll put my hoodie up on my head too. It's raining. I'm trying to get an absolute shelter. So why did you profile this young man? Because he was a black youth. Because George Zimmerman was a real wannabe police officer. George Zimmerman had it in his mind, that this kid was a wrongdoer. So he wanted